Hey everyone, this is Jen and you're watching BPD Woman. On this channel, you will learn how to more effectively live and manage your borderline personality disorder. It's my goal to help you understand your emotions, why you feel them, when you feel them, and why you feel them so much. Utilizing my own personal experience and recovery tips, along with tools such as DBT, you will learn to realize your life goals, or what those in DBT call a life worth living. Whether that's a goal in relationships, love, career, money, financial stability, or just overall emotional stability, you're in the right place. So welcome. My name is Jen. I am not a life coach, a therapist, a psychologist, but I am a person with a lot of experience who can answer one very important question that most of those other folks cannot, which is, what is it like to live with borderline personality disorder? I was diagnosed 20 years ago, and ever since then, I've committed my time, money, resources, literal blood, sweat, and tears to my BPD recovery. Things that I've struggled with most are black and white thinking, or what they call splitting, self-mutilation, that's more of a thing of the past for me now, emotional lability, which, as we know, is the frequent change of emotions, and sometimes even a unclear sense of self. Oh, and let's not forget intense fear of abandonment. So if that sounds good to you, please hit subscribe and the bell below so you never miss a video. I produce about 3 to 5, sometimes even more videos each week. Many of them are pulled from they're all pulled from my real life experience, and most of these videos are also pulled from things that happen to me in day to day. I also take suggestions from you, so please drop me a line, leave a comment, and let's get going. I say this quite often in my videos, but if you do have borderline personality disorder, or a disorder that's very similar to BPD, such as CP, TSD, congratulations, because you have one of the most highly treatable, well-recovered, thoroughly researched personality disorders of all of them, really. With DBT and the advent each year of more experts being trained in DBT, with more resources being available both online, in person, there is so much wealth and knowledge out there for recovery, and I like to think of myself as a walking, living, breathing example of that. So yesterday I posted a video entitled, "Are you feeling more dysregulated than usual?" And it was basically a video describing 4 reasons that you may feel a little bit more anxious or out of control or more dysregulated, or feeling like you're falling back into an ineffective behavior pattern, such as self-harm, excessive drinking, excessive smoking, any behavior that you don't wish to have, you may find yourself falling back. And I talked about why the holidays can be extra stressors for those of us with BPD. And yesterday I wasn't really feeling very dysregulated myself. However, this afternoon, as I was driving around seeing clients, I actually started to feel a bit sad and dysregulated and overwhelmed with my calendar. You know, last night I spent maybe a good, 20, 30 minutes just really going through that calendar and preparing myself, marking things down that I knew I needed to be able to, I had to get done, and other things that I didn't need to get done. And so one of the things that I reminded myself in the midst of driving around and feeling sad today was that I reminded myself of my COPA heads. And so what are COPA heads? In DBT or therapy, or even in a type of therapy that's not related to BPD or to DBT, you may be told things like, prepare yourself for what's coming down the pike. You know, you may hear, look at the obstacles that will be in your way. Plan your week ahead. Look at in places and encounters and things of this nature that might make it harder for you to achieve your goals, or that might cause you more stress, right? Let's say you were going to court for a DUI hearing. Well, in the days and weeks leading up to that hearing, you probably experience a greater sense of anxiety and worry, and perhaps things start to become a little bit unmanageable. So way back when, I really forget when I started to really do this, I started to create what I call the Cope Ahead list. What that means is that I use my iPhone. I really rely on my iPhone for so many things, but in this particular situation, I rely on it to get me through stressful situations. And it's a good way that I list problematic behaviors or things that I might be up against, paired with a solution that will be helpful to me and something that I can rely on and look at quickly if I'm in the heat of the moment and I'm getting too dysregulated. You know, when emotion is high, logic is low. So emotion is high, logic is low. And when emotion is high and you can't tap into all of that cognitive information, like, why don't you take some deep breaths? Or why don't you go on a walk? Or remind yourself that this person doesn't have control over you anymore. Anything of that nature. It can be a lot, and you can feel overwhelmed as it is, so it can be hard to recall that information. So I write it down, and maybe this will work for you. So I'm going to share for you some tips on coping ahead. How to make, that's today's video's topic, is coping ahead, the Cope Ahead list, plan for the best, and decrease your emotional reactivity. So I create these Cope Ahead lists I would probably say whenever there's something really important to me coming up, or I create them for a particular mood or feeling that I find problematic to deal with, and I will write them down in the following way. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and I'll be throwing up some screenshots here of my actual Cope Aheads that I have made for myself. So they can be really for anything, and I'm going to go over 3. One is going to be an emotion, the other is going to be an event, and the other is going to be a relationship related. And you're free to take some of these if they work for you. You are also welcome, of course, to create your own. I don't care if you take what I've written, that's totally fine. The goal is to be effective and to do what works for you. So anger. How many of us have a problem with anger? Let me raise all my hooves. Man, I think probably more than any other class outside of college and DBT, I've put myself through many anger management courses and read a lot of books. And, anger is a strong emotion. It's a healthy emotion, but the way that you manage it, note that it's called anger management and not anger abolishment. Okay, you can't ever get rid of your anger. That's not humanly possible. Is to find ways to cope with it effectively and make those behaviors a routine. Like, you don't sit there and get angry at a stop sign when someone else isn't moving their car fast enough, and then you're like, well, what are the cognitive things that I can bring upon myself in this moment to make myself feel more calm? Right? It doesn't work like that. So reading these in calmer states of mind before you get to that event, before I'm in the angry zone, before I'm at the holidays, before I'm in a dating situation, I have repeated these to myself every so often, looking at them, almost studying them like a study guide. If it helps to think of this as being like a class, then if that works, then go for it. I don't tap into these as much as I used to I used to read them every Sunday. I would like go through my DBT app. I would read my DBT card. I would set aside 2 to 3, sometimes 4 hours, and I would basically just do a class for Jen. And that would just be looking at all of the materials that I wanted to review that I think would help my recovery, going over DBT skills, doing DBT homework. It's basically just time set aside for you. So now they've become a little bit more ingrained and practiced for me. So now I can actually only need to pull them up on my phone to look at them when I'm really in an emotional dysregulated state. And I found myself in that state today, driving around seeing clients. And so I thought that I pulled out my phone and I pulled up my holiday, what I called the holiday cope ahead. And I texted the entire note to myself. And so I don't know if you know this, I'm sure there's a similar function with Android, but I texted the note to myself, and then I asked, you can ask Siri, hey Siri, do I have any new text messages? And Siri will say, yes, Jennifer sent you the following message. And then she'll read the entire text. And so as I'm driving and I'm in this sort of emotional state, I wasn't like out of control, but I was beginning to feel sad and nervous, and I was fidgeting more. And I've been like, I like cleaned all the hair behind the bed today from the dog, and I had to make sure that the corners were set a certain way. I knew that I was getting more dysregulated. Those were the triggers for me. And I texted it, and Siri read it, and so I could hear it. I could hear it safely without looking at the phone, and it was very helpful. So this is what it looks like. So I'll post this first one up here. So this first one I'm going to talk about is an emotion. So if you have a really problematic emotion, for me it's anger, I have written a cope ahead, and it's broken down into a few ways. First, it'll be the topic, cope ahead, anger, okay? And it'll say something like, it'll give maybe a few bullet points of some just real quick, rapid fire things that I can access quickly. And they can be pictures, emojis, phrases, followed by situations that will be problematic for me anger-wise. And I will call that the situation, okay? And then I will write a retort to that situation, which I call the cope ahead. So looking at the anger management here are just a few notes at the top I've written. Hit the magic pause button. Slow your roll. It's easier to stop a train at 5 miles an hour than at 50. Let anger go like a balloon in the sky. Just let it float away. Breathe. Respond. Don't react. Hold on to yourself. These are quick phrases and pictures that I can look at that will help me more quickly start to come off of that anger float. There are other questions that I will ask myself, right? And I think I pasted some of these from an article that I got offline. When you start getting upset about something, take a moment to think about the situation. Ask yourself, how important is it in the grand scheme of things? Is it really worth getting angry? Is it worth ruining the rest of my day? At the bottom here, I'll write some situations here that I know tend to get me into angry spots. Being in a rush, loss of my personal time or just downtime for me, not exercising as much, being more judgmental. These are things that can tip me off into anger. As I mentioned, it's not helpful to read this when you're angry. At that point, you're going to be so dysregulated if you're really overboard with anger and you're finding yourself in a problematic situation, that at that point it'll be time for emotional regulation or some distress tolerance, whether that's walking away, taking a break, taking a jog around the building, whatever it is that you need to get out that energy so that physiologically your body calms down and your mind will follow, right? Calm down the body, the mind will follow. It is true. These are, again, things that you read when you're in a calm, regulated, wise mind that you can access. And so they become more habitual in how you think, and they work their way into a daily pattern of thinking. Let's move on. And again, what's cool about, and I don't know anything about an Android phone, but I know that if you in my notes, my iPhone notes, I'll start typing cope at the top of the search bar, and then it'll bring up every note that I've ever written with cope. So I don't even have to search hard for these. Like, I just put cope and it comes up. So here's a one for the holiday cope ahead, which is what I was feeling a little bit nerve-wracked about today, and I needed to kind of remind myself of some things. So cope ahead. So the first thing I've done here for my cope ahead is I've copy and pasted 3 different articles that I found a few years ago and over the years, one even going back to 2012, that were helpful for me, that I can click, read, and they speak to the issue I was having. One was feeling more depressed around the holidays. Another link I put here was one Christmas when I was meeting my boyfriend at the time's parents. I put an article there. I put a link from the Mayo Clinic. I think they have a wealth of great information. And I put those there so that I could click them and I could read them, and boom, they were right there. Then I had this is what I was talking about earlier, moving down in my holiday section of, I start with what I call a problematic situation or event, and then I put a cope. So let's look at this one. Okay. I get sad when people leave. So, after a nice big gathering, I'm having a really great time with everyone. And then what I've noticed that has become a problem with me over the years is that once they leave, I feel like this great sadness that comes over me, and I feel depressed and I don't want them to leave. So I thought about that as I was writing this cope ahead, which I wrote several years ago now. And this is what I came up with. Coping ahead. So when I get sad when people leave after a party or holiday gathering. Cope. It is natural to feel sad without a family. Acknowledge the feeling, but don't sit in it too long. Be thankful and grateful you have friends to spend it with, and you're not stressed with family who tend to make you sad. Ain't that the truth? Use opposite action if you feel sad. Go on a jog, talk to people, see a movie, anything, but be gentle on yourself. It's okay to have a nice and enjoyable moment. Watch out for self-sabotaging behavior when you're trying to ruin the good feeling that you have. Here's another one. Here's the problematic situation. I get so excited people are here for the party that I talk too much, feel the need to show off, feel like I have to perform, and I can come off judgmentally. Coping ahead. This is how I cope with this particular issue. Breathe. Be in the moment. Modulate your intensity. Know that these people will return again. Be gentle. Give, which is a DBT skill. Gentle, interested, validating, easygoing. How do you want them to feel after the interaction is over? The goal is to keep friends. Let yourself be vulnerable. Being funny comes easy, but don't be hurtful. So these can speak to you for anything. You could write a cope ahead for, a particular problem that you have at work. Maybe there's like one person that really is triggering for you. You could write a cope ahead about how they're triggering, situations you find themselves in they're triggering, and then you could write ways that you can deal with that more effectively. You could write them for a particular problematic emotion, intense depression, anger. Okay. Here's one I wrote for dating. So, interpersonal relationships can be difficult for those of us with BPD. And so I wrote myself a little note about dating. And then I wrote myself some problematic situations I found myself in and how to combat those. Okay. Manage your expectations. I have emotional fibromyalgia, which is why being around people for too long can be overstimulating. How am I going to solve this? Okay. I thought I put some more stuff here, but you get the idea. So in that, I don't see the rest of my note here, but in that particular dating cope ahead, I wrote things like, okay, at the beginning, some people might call this love bombing. I call it kind of like intense, immediate infatuation. The this splitting behavior perhaps, right? You're so great. I want to spend all of this time for you. So this is the problem I find myself in when I start dating someone again. It's that I'm very excited. I give them all my time. I neglect my schedules. I stop seeing my friends. You know, I just kind of get like obsessed with this other person, and they get a little bit obsessed with me. And so I don't want to do that. And so, you know, that would be the problematic behavior. You know, I put all my time up front. I stop talking to my friends. We spend all this time together, and then I become resentful, or I lose friends, or whatever. And so then the coping behavior, the cope that I would write would be, take your time in getting to know someone. Keep up with your friends. Keep up with your routines. See the new person you're dating once a week, no more. Take it slow. So this really helped me today. Maybe it'll work for you, but I have found that this really helps. That, you know, it's especially, you know, in situations of intense emotional dysregulation, the first thing that you have to ask yourself in any situation is, what am I feeling and why? Why is this happening? You know, for so many years and in so many situations, I accidentally usually I put all of the pets like outside of where I film. And I guess I locked one of the cats in here with me today. So anyway, just trying to stop her clawing at the bed. In any situation, you need to assess, why am I feeling this way? What's happening right now? What is my body feeling? Have I been in this situation before? Be investigative, right? Be curious. I'll put that up again. The be curious, not judgmental. It's a Walt Whitman quote. He's a famous writer. You don't want to be judgy. You want to be investigative. You want to ask questions and not jump to conclusions or assume that you know the answer. And so for a long time, I would find myself in these situations like an emotional tornado, right? Or a tsunami. And I had no freaking idea what I was feeling. I had no idea why I was in this state. So writing it down can better equip you to be not only self-aware, but to solve the problem, right? So now I know that going to a large Christmas party, maybe I can go to one of those every year, you know? Now I expect that sometimes around this type of year, I'll feel a little bit of anxiety for a few days, but then it will go down, right? A couple of years ago, 5-10 years ago, I might have said, you know, I might have had no idea why I was feeling so dysregulated. And maybe I would have done like a destructive behavior, you know, maybe I would like smoke or you know, call up an ex-boyfriend that was not any good for me and get him back in my life, you know, and just woo, tornado time. Now I can sit back and I can say, I think I know what's going on here. I'm starting to feel more dysregulated because the holidays sometimes bring up anxiety in me. I think the thing for me to do is to lessen off my calendar load, and maybe I'd like to do some yoga tonight. I think that would calm me down. In fact, yoga is on my schedule tonight. Until you can get to that point where you can recall it quickly and you know your emotions and you know yourself better, writing it down can be a super useful tool. So, and I have found it as much. That's the cope ahead technique. Cope ahead. You can write this down for feelings, situations, people, problems, really anything, holidays. So let me know what you think in the comments below. You know, is there a certain way that you like to cope ahead? Maybe you've already tried this technique. Does it work for you? I'd love to hear your comments. You have been watching BPD Woman. My name is Jen. Until next time, be effective in whatever you do, and we'll talk soon. Bye.